Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. It's Twyla Jenkins here. I'm sorry, I am cracking up. I know I am. I'm trying to pull myself together here. It's been a long day. I have been up since about 4 o'clock this morning because I had a live event today, which is super exciting as we are getting back to some kind of normal. And so today's show, as you guys saw me promoting, you probably heard me talk about several times, is about Juneteenth. Yes, happy Juneteenth. It's a wonderful day today, as now it's a national holiday. So we are super excited that God has blessed us to see another Friday. It's Friday, June the 18th, and tomorrow, being June 19th, is our now national holiday, Juneteenth, also being recognized here in the city of Chicago. Some of our city and county offices are closed, so now it's going to be a paid holiday. So some people may not know what Juneteenth is, what it's all about. How did this happen? Actually, I knew about Juneteenth even as a child because of my mother. My mother is from Texas. My dad was from Arkansas. Excuse me. And so my mother told us about Juneteenth. And many, many moons ago, I worked for Indiana Black Expo and under the auspice of Reverend Charles Williams. And we used to always have a Juneteenth celebration. And so I've always kind of known about Juneteenth, but it was not one of those holidays that was recognized, that was celebrated. Very few communities celebrated Juneteenth. It's not something in our history books. It's not something that we teach our generations, our kids. I doubt some of my nieces and nephews know about Juneteenth. But anyway, I was going to interview my mother today, and we talked on Monday. We talked on Monday, and I told her all about it. And she said, okay. And she said, I'm going to put some clothes and get my makeup and my hair done. And I said, okay. And I called my sister on Tuesday and told my sister, make sure you get mom out to your house so we can do this interview. And I was laughing when I came on, y'all, because we don't know where my mama is. So she went MIA. So I guess my mother said she either one, forgot that she talked to me on Monday and agreed to do the interview, or two, said she wasn't in the mood to do no interview to talk about Juneteenth. So she just left her house. And so when my brother went to get her, we have no idea where she is. So the slogan in Indiana is Wandering Indiana. So my mother is out wandering Indiana, and she is not here with me to do this interview. So thank God I have a circle of friends and people that I can depend on when I am in a crunch and when I am in a bind. God will always send a ram in the bush. So thank God I made a phone call and she was available and she said yes. So I have a very special guest, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, who is she is the chief of all things, but she is the National Director of Education at Rainbow Push Coalition, leading Push Excel, which is the educational arm of Rainbow Push. And so right before I bring Reverend Wilson on, as I always do, I'm going to give you all a little bit. It's only a 2-minute video about Juneteenth, so you kind of have an idea, just a little bit of background and history on what Juneteenth is all about. And I will bring Reverend Wilson on right after this short interview that is, it's not an interview, a little short segment about Juneteenth. It's only 2 minutes. So I hope you all enjoy this history lesson.
Juneteenth is more than just another date on the calendar, especially to Black Americans. June 19th, 1865, or Juneteenth, represents something momentous.
What Juneteenth represents is sort of a period that's put in the end of the slavery.
That's Frank Smith. He's the founding director of the African American Civil War Memorial and Museum in Washington, D.C.
But this is a major thing on the part of the United States. For the first time now, it's abolishing slavery. 3.9 million blacks are freed.
So, how did Juneteenth come to be? Well, on January 1st, 1863, as America was in the midst of a civil war in which slavery was a major factor in the conflict, then President Abraham Lincoln issued an executive order called the Emancipation Proclamation. The proclamation declared that
all persons held as slaves within said designated states and parts of states are henceforward and forever shall be free.
However, it had its limitations, including the fact that it only applied to states that had seceded, leaving slavery unchanged in border states. But the promise of freedom for black slaves, it came with a price.
Came with a provision that you had to join the army and help the Union win the war. Otherwise, the thing would have had no effect at all.
That meant for the first time since 1792, black soldiers could fight for the U.S. Army.
So they had to prove to themselves, but they also had to prove to the rest of America that freedom was important enough to them. So they were willing to risk their lives and to take up, as Denzel Washington says in the movie Glory, to catch a bullet just like everybody else for freedom.
The Civil War continued until April of 1865, when the South surrendered to the North. But during the war, and especially after the war, there were a lot of slaves that didn't know about the proclamation or their freedom. One of those places was in Texas. Then, on June 19th, 1865, more than a month after the Civil War ended and 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, Union General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas to inform black slaves that
the people of Texas are informed that in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, that's the proclamation, all slaves are free. This involves absolute equality of personal rights.
And although slavery was officially abolished in the U.S. on December 6, 1865, June 19th, or Juneteenth, symbolizes the beginning of liberation.
So I hope you enjoyed that short little snippet. And now I will bring on none other than the Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson. Hello.
Hello, Twyla. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Thank you so much. I know this was, I ain't never called nobody 30 seconds before an interview and said, do you have time? So thank you so much, Reverend Wilson, for taking the time. It's been a little while since I've been able to see you since COVID, but looks like life is treating you well.
Well, thank you. God has blessed me, and I'm glad to be here. And thank you for thinking of me.
Absolutely. I was like, Laura, who can I call who, of course, would have so much history, information, and be able to give us some insight and what it even means about Juneteenth now being recognized as a national holiday. So, Reverend Wilson, as the video just told us about, slavery and of course, we know when it started and how it started. And so just give us a little bit of insight from your perspective about what Juneteenth means.
Well, I think Juneteenth really suggests to us that at the time President Lincoln freed the slaves, there was no social media. There was a limited access to communication and information. Many slaves could not read or write, and they were locked into plantations that were not connected to each other in any critical way. And so if you're in Texas, you didn't hear about the fact that you were freed for 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. And so the same southern states where you see all of this tension, the red states we call them now, that's where the slaves were. They were in the South. They were there because they were growing the cotton, they were growing the tobacco, they were in the fields. Those same states were the same ones who wanted to leave the Union, not be a part of the United States, because they did not want to liberate slaves because it impacted them economically. So now you have a president who, in order to what he considered to preserve the Union, not only did he free the slaves, he also
Uh-oh, Reverend Wilson just froze. Hopefully she'll come back. Oh no, I hope it doesn't disconnect. But because she was making a very poignant point about our president at the time. And, one thing that we don't talk about probably enough is the economic impact. There she goes. Okay, she's
Yeah,
back.
some kind of economic impact existed if you get rid of all the slaves. So they were not telling, slaveholders did not want to tell their slaves that they were free. They didn't have to continue working for them. 2.5 years before slaves in Texas knew that they had been liberated. As a result, can you imagine how much free labor they had amassed in 2.5 years just in Texas alone? That did not include states like Tennessee. They didn't find out until September. And so if you go look at when the slaves were actually aware that they had been given freedom, each state had a different time because those governors and those state legislators were trying not to free the slaves. And so while Juneteenth being a national holiday is a recognition of a step towards full liberation, what we have discovered as African Americans, that's just the beginning. We don't have a constitutionally protected right to vote. So even though we have a right to vote, you see in 40, I think it's 43 states today have tried to limit that right. You can't vote on Sunday.
Right.
You can't have
So many.
they're trying to limit absentee voting so
Right.
that it restricts the time of how we can vote. Now, some people, we need to have a federal holiday, make election day a federal holiday so that everybody doesn't have
Everybody
to
can
work
go
on
and
that
vote.
day and they get paid if they're. So,
So
Juneteenth is a marker.
it is. And
Like last
yes. So the other saying is 40 acres and a mule. And from my understanding, coming through this period of freedom and coming through even the period of a time when, we had nothing, we were supposed to get our freedom 2.5 years, after the Emancipation Proclamation, many, and even some after that, because you said they found out in June, some didn't find out until August. You
some
said
in October.
October. So just depending on how the news was being carried, and of course, because of the economic impact, many of the slave owners didn't want it to be carried and didn't want their slaves to find out that they could be free. And so, and it would be a celebration. It literally would be a celebration that you no longer have to work in these cotton fields and things like that. So tell me about the old saying, 40 acres and a mule. How is that connected to
Well,
slavery?
the idea was, how do you repair the slaves for the work that they've been doing for years, where they've no wages? If you remember, most slaves worked every day. That's why they're called slaves. They did not work for wages. They were brought, snatched from Africa, and dropped in various locations, and they were there as free labor, having been purchased as property. So it's just like you don't pay your cows to give milk, you don't pay your horses to pull the wagon or to pull the plow. You don't pay your slaves. You provide them with food, shelter, and some clothes so that they can work, but you're not paying them for the work they do. So this idea of 40 acres and a mule was thought to be a form of reparations. Well, we never got 40 acres or the mule. However, some slaveholders at the time of emancipation or left in their wills property to the slaves. They put it in their little journals and ledgers. Well, many slaves, I know my great grandfather purchased himself out of slavery and had land that he then gave to his daughters, which was subsequently taken back through deception and theft by white people. And so we had much of the land in the South were owned by ex-slave descendants of ex-slaves, lost that land through trickery, or they sold it for little or nothing to people. So think about it. We were 40% of the population of the state of Mississippi, where cotton was king. Think of all of the land that we worked in. Just take the 11 southern states. How much do they owe us for the non-payment of wages during
Right.
slavery?
Right.
From the time of arrived in Charleston, North Carolina, the slaves that were in South Carolina, Mississippi, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee,
Yeah.
Alabama, Georgia, Florida.
Right.
How
Right.
much? How much are we owed for that? Because people say we can't compute reparations. Well, you can compute how much money slave owners generated through
Exactly.
the cotton
Right.
plantation.
And that's just one. That's just one
Part.
form. Right. That's just one product, because there was definitely many that was being
You had cotton,
sold.
tobacco,
Right.
soybeans. I mean, we can just go. The list goes on. Tomatoes. I mean, just whatever they were growing.
Whatever.
We were the ones that were planting, harvesting those products for nothing.
And building. We won't even start talking about the architecture. It's an interesting point that you talked about the land, because actually when I was talking to my mother on Monday, that is something that she shared as well, that her grandfather had hundreds of acres of land in Texas. And she did, I will share, what some of the things that she told me in preparation of this call that she's gone MIA on.
She already told you what you needed to know.
Is that what it is? She told me what I needed to know. So therefore,
That's
she
right.
didn't need to do the interview. She said, just go and share, right? So
sorry.
Just go and share. So, but to your point about the land in the South, and so many of us owning land, and it being taken back from us, back from our generations, back from our families through deception and deceit and things like that. It was told in the story of Queen Sugar, the show that's on the OWN network. Some of that narrative is very true, even though in the reality of what happens and what has happened and continues to happen. There are many families who could be in court fighting over land that's been in their families for years, but then they want to come and take it. But to that point, and yes, Bonnie Collins, thank you for joining. And hey, Shiree. Shiree says, good afternoon, Reverend Wilson. Sugarcane was huge. Sugarcane was another product.
A big product. And we raised the animals, pigs and cows.
Well, we did it all.
We did it all. Absolutely.
We absolutely did it all, and did not get a dime back for any of it.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. You got some shoes that you wore and handed down to the next person with holes in them, and you figured out how to patch them. You had clothes that you wore day in and day out as a slave.
Truly have been a culture of survival. And also, Reverend Wilson, with Juneteenth, it was a celebration. So Juneteenth is our 4th of July. Because just like Independence Day and how this country celebrates, Juneteenth was when down south they found out 2.5 years later that actually they no longer had to be a slave. And my mother said that they put a goat in the ground and they smoked that goat, and they had in back, she told me about the stories of soda pop. They called it soda water then, and how that wasn't something that they and sugar bread. It wasn't something that they had every day. It was a treat to be able to get those things. She was just a child, and so it was a celebration where we would have cookouts and barbecues, and just like what we do on the 4th of July, you may do some things that you don't normally do. And so she told me about those things that the community came together. Why do you think, Reverend Wilson, this never became until 2021? Why has it taken us so long to recognize this day and to recognize what happened so long ago?
Well, I think we're just beginning to hear our real history. It's not been taught in school. We've all graduated from elementary, high school, and college, and at no point did they teach us about lynching, 5,000 people that were lynched throughout the South. They didn't teach us about Tulsa and the 40 plus massacres that happened across the United States to Black people. Lynching has not been a federal crime. They didn't teach us about what happened in Tulsa, Black Wall Street, and how we had a community that was separate and equal, if not superior, and they bombed it and burned it down. Nobody told us about Rosewood in American history. I took American history, you took it. They don't tell us these things. They didn't tell us that they didn't announce to our ancestors that they were free for years later, after the emancipation. And yet they want us to celebrate the 4th of July. It's not our holiday, because we were not considered equal that day. We were not considered people.
No.
1776. Even though we fought in the Revolutionary War, we were not considered worthy of any recognition. You know, when I think about Crispus Attucks giving his life for a country that he was not recognized as a person, that says something.
Right.
So,
that is true. So now that we've gotten to this period, we have now a national holiday. It's now being recognized in our own city. It's now being recognized in this country. What should we do with this? What should we do with this knowledge and this education?
well, I think now we have to lobby for those things, those public policies that matter. We need a constitutionally protected right to vote. We cannot allow these same Southern states, these same Confederate ideological legislators, state legislators, to decide how we can vote, when we can vote, and what the conditions are for our ability to exercise the basic tenet of citizenship, which is a right to vote. We can't allow them to tell us you can't give people water in Georgia who's standing in those hot lines trying to exercise their civic duty. We have to push our senators and our congresspeople in the United States House to pass that, they call it the John Lewis legislation. We have to have a voting rights bill that's federal, protect against state legislators who try to restrict our votes. They're trying to take us back to slavery.
Exactly. We were fighting then, and as Reverend Jackson says all the time, the fight continues. It's not over. As a matter of fact, where we are now, I heard someone say, and it really never hit me this way, I'll be honest. I heard someone say the reason why the election really was saying that it was fake, or it was false, or the numbers didn't count, or what have you, however they want to put it. It was truly because of the Black and brown vote, because without the Black and brown vote, it would not have been what it is. And so, or what it is and what it turned out to be. So that in and of itself tries to delegitimize the vote because of how Black and brown people came out to vote. So now, since we see what the Stacey Abrams of the world came out and helped us to do, right, by getting out the vote, what Reverend Jackson and yourself and so many others have been on the lines to get out the vote, is that why they are coming out so strongly against all of some of the tactics that help to get out the vote?
Absolutely. We're no longer the minority. Black, red, yellow, black, and brown people are the majority. They see the country shifting. You have African Americans, Latino Americans, Native Americans, and Asian Americans. All of us have been oppressed and been rejected. So now they are fighting to maintain this position of superiority. It's gone away. We must fight to elect people to represent our interests at the city, county, state, federal.
And that fear is what showed up. That fear is what showed up on January 6th, right? That was nothing but the fear of not having what they've always had. So just like the slave owners who didn't want to tell their slaves that they were free because they don't want to let that free labor go, it's no different than all of these like you said, these southern states coming out against the right to vote and the process to help to get minorities out to vote. And so if we come against that, if we take that away, then that's less likelihood for the vote to be counted. And so it's very interesting that we've come this far, yet we have so far to go.
Yeah, but we come this far by faith. And I think that God is just moves constantly. The arc of the universe does bend toward justice. And so the more we understand what it means to have justice, not just symbols, we will fight for them. I look at these young people today, they are prepared to do what my generation did in the 60s. We were intolerant of injustice. We were not afraid, and we were not deterred absence of justice. We said the time is now. And I think that it is now that we have to say to people, we are the majority. We have the power, and we have the votes, and we have consumer dollars. You're not going to make us feel inferior, and we're not going to be treated as if we are property.
I don't think now is the time for us to just celebrate Juneteenth by getting some friends together and, by eating some food and treating it as if it is our 4th of July. But there's so much work that we need to do. What, Reverend Wilson, do we specifically need to do with this momentum that we have behind this national holiday now?
I think we have to be contacting our United States senators. We have 2 in every state, and say, we expect the voting rights bill to be passed through the Senate so that it gets to the president's desk. We want constitutionally protected right to vote now. Call the U.S. Senate. We have, the House is moving forward. The Senate is holding up. It's those Republican senators. Some are in the South and some are in Midwestern states. We have to say to them, because we elect them. We either elect them by not voting or by voting. We want voting rights. We want anti-lynching bill, a bill that says lynching is a federal crime. We want to make sure that hate crimes against Blacks are treated like any other hate crime. When that boy went into Mother Emanuel Church and shot it up, that's a hate crime. If it had been against any other ethnic group, it would be called a hate crime. It's a Black church. It was a hate crime. I don't want to care whether he's crazy or whatever his situation was. That was a federal hate. It should have been a federal hate crime. He should be in a federal penitentiary now, today. So we have to focus on public policy. It is not a time to eat barbecue whenever you want. Now is the time for us to focus on public policies that impact us. We need to fight at the state level. While we're pushing federal legislation, all politics is local. You should know who your state rep, your state senators are. How do you stand on voting rights, voter protections, making sure that our people can vote easily? We should have early voting in every state. We should have voting on Sundays in every state. We should have mail-in ballots in every state. They can't be changing polling places to make it convenient inconvenient for us to vote. That's crazy.
Right.
So it should be a federal holiday, election day, all across the country. It shouldn't be arbitrary, letting companies decide when I can go vote. You got to take your 2 hours, 6 and 8, and then come to work.
Right.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. I would agree 100%. And then how do we also, you work with young people. Push Excel works with elementary school students, middle school students, high school students. How do we, to me, one of the things that we have not done a good job at in our culture and in our community is commemorating things like this. And so many other communities, their culture, their heritage, where they have come from is it's life woven within who they are, in their families, the generational richness of an ethnicity. And so how do we teach our young people what Juneteenth means and what it should symbolize to them?
I think that we have to do what every other ethnic group does. They have Saturday schools. If you're Korean, you go to Saturday school. If you're Jewish, you go to Saturday school. Every other group teaches their history and their culture on Saturday. Churches have to go back to what I learned much of what I know at home and in church. I did not learn it in school. Just like your mother taught you, your grandparents, my grandparents taught much of our history, my parents, and in church. We learned our history. I was at the African Methodist Episcopal Church. They focused on struggles. You had to learn the history of Richard Allen. And so we have to teach generationally our history and our stories. At Push Excel this summer, we will have the Summer STEAM Sports Institute, and we have to include and incorporate this every week in the lives of our children. Our children play too much and learn too little.
That is the truth right there. If I ain't never heard it, our children play too much and learn too little. So many cultures also in the summertime, they send their kids to camps, band camp. They send their kids to science camp and engineering camp. And
Right.
it's good to know that Push Excel continues to try and teach our kids, and not just as Reverend used to say, what they do in May, and then and then
March Madness, May Sadness, because it
right, because they don't graduate. They running up and down that court or field playing and then not graduating. So it's so important that we do teach our kids and teach our youth. And I hope our culture is also weaving within what you're teaching at STEAM and the Sports Institute, because that's also so important for our kids to really understand where they have come from in our struggle, and how our generations have allowed us to survive and have this freedom. It didn't just happen. Bonnie Collins, thank you so much for sharing this wonderful story about your great grandmother who worked with George Washington Carver. She was head of the 4-H club in Tuskegee and became a midwife because she was extremely angry that her slave parents were seen by the vet who took care of the animals. Wow. That is an amazing story. And there's so many others like that, because we just didn't have those freedoms. We didn't have those rights. And, this morning, I had the pleasure of doing the Illinois Hospital Association Health Equity Day at Erie Crown Theater, and Michelle Silverthorne was the keynote speaker. And she's amazing. Whenever the conference comes back, Reverend Wilson, you guys have got to have her speak about equity and what it means, and systematic racism. And so she just said some profound things. But what the Illinois Health Association is even doing, and I'll make sure to get these reports to you, is amazing. So you're very familiar with Brenda Battle over at UC Medicine, because there's still so many disparities, not only in voting, but in our health system, in our healthcare system. There's still so many disparities that is going on in our Black and brown communities that is hurting us and separating us from being successful and achieving. So we've got to teach our young people about the importance of this holiday, what it means, and also how they carry it to their next generation. We've got to, like you said, teach our young people instead of just allowing them to play all summer long. I don't have any kids, but I always tell my nieces and nephews, my brothers and sisters, listen, in the summertime, our kids need to be in camps. Our kids need to be, I love what you said about Saturday school. That is what Rainbow Push used to be. That's what Operation Breadbasket was. It was that Saturday school where, we went. I know, working there 20 years, so many generations, and I would love to see the parents still bringing the children, and the children becoming adults and still coming back to that organization because of what they learned. And we simply don't have that anymore. That's why there's so much violence in this city. Is that what you would say? That the violence just stems from the separation of knowledge of our history and our culture?
Well, I think it's a combination of several things. If you don't know whose you are, you think you're nobody. Reverend Jackson said, I am somebody. you have to have a sense of a historical connection. You have to have a historical frame of reference. I never thought I was nobody. I knew that I came from a generation of people. They were not wealthy, but they were hardworking. They were people who ultimately owned plots of land, didn't own as much as perhaps they wanted to, but they had a sense of dignity. I know that I did not come here to be a slave. I know the difference between emancipation and slavery. And so I think it is teaching children, it's not where you are, it's where you're going. And you
Mm.
have to have them to see, you have to dream and have
Mm.
a vision of a better future. You have to
Yeah.
see yourself moving from where you are to where God would have you to be. And
Mm.
we have an obligation to this generation to take them another place, not just
Mm.
keep calling them little people and naming our children after liquor. Come on
Mm.
here, ICA and all of that. That's ridiculous. And so we have to invest our time and our talent in them. So they do need to know their history, but they also have to begin to see careers. Where's America and the world going in the future? What are the careers? We have a whole generation of children. They need to be in technology because STEM is what everybody's using. We spent a year and a half virtually. That's nothing but STEM. No
Yeah.
one was prepared for it. None of
Yeah.
us are really. And many children totally unprepared. They have phones that they should be designing and creating the software to use on those phones, as
Yes,
opposed
ma'am.
to TikTok. Create your own ways of engaging and communicating. So
Yes. That is
there's
so
so much
true that
to do it. So I now know you're gonna help me this summer with this STEAM program. I got
see,
you now. I need
see,
your
this
ideas.
is the only that I should have known. If I call and she's available, it's gonna come with a price. I should have known uh,
I wouldn't
that this,
charge you anything. I need your ideas, and it's people
absolutely.
like you that get it. We have to take the time and I really do want to sit down with a number of people. We got a plan for these children because you got
Yeah.
some of them have parents that don't have the capacity. They're in jail. Why are you gonna plan for a child when you're trying to plan to get out? That's your
Right.
focus. There's so
Right.
many children with incarcerated parents, not just the fathers, mothers also, uh,
Right.
drug addicted.
Right.
So
Right.
we have to be the parents that they are looking for, that they need. They can't be raised by the street.
That's true. And that's what's in the street. I had to go and record Reverend Marshall Hatch for the Illinois Hospital Association. And he was telling me, I'm gonna have to have him on the program because he was telling me about the program they have for young Black men over on the West Side. And he said they just want a connection. They just want a family. They just want to be a part of something. That's what a gang is. And so what
That's
him
all.
and his son is doing is so important because it's teaching them how to be a man and what it means to be a Black man in today's society, and connecting them to other Black men who look like something, who have a vision, who can tell them that their life is for purpose, that they didn't come here just to be in slavery, and stop being enslaved here, because that's where it begins, is in their mindset and thinking that they can accomplish anything and be anything. And so that's what we have to do. So, Reverend Wilson, I'm always here. I will do absolutely anything. I love Reverend Jackson. I love you, and anything that I can do to help our next generation, because it's important. I said in a video yesterday recording that I was doing for an event, I said, if it wasn't for them, there will be no us. And if it wasn't for us, where's our future? So we have to set the precedent.
I thank you for all you do. I mean, people see you producing events. They didn't see you as I did throughout this pandemic, delivering food to shelters and homeless people, and taking clothes and things in the middle of a pandemic, placing yourself at risk. But you say, well, I can spend my time. Many people got depressed because they felt they could do nothing. You figured out something. And so I think all of us have that kind of obligation. Do what you can while you can.
That's
so
right.
many young people are depending on somebody to just come and save them and rescue them.
Yeah,
They didn't choose the life they have. It was placed upon them. And
yeah.
we got to help get them out of these things.
We really
I'm
do.
excited. I don't know what program this is, but I want to come back.
You will absolutely come back. This is the I am that I know. I didn't even get to tell you. I was rushing, so I was like, I'm just gonna send you the link. Just jump on the link. So every Friday at 4:30 for the I Am That Woman movement, you know about the retreat. The retreat is a wellness, a health and wellness retreat for women just like yourself, high achieving African American women to get away for 5 days and 4 nights. You pour out so much into everyone else. You really do need to take the time to get refueled, renewed, and revived. And that's what the retreat is about. The movement is about what we're doing in a bigger picture. The movement is about making sure that we as Black women are moving and we are making sure that we are healing our community. We know that so many stand on our shoulders, and that's why we have the retreat, so we can go and get refueled because so many depend on us. So many depend on you, Reverend Wilson. Thank you for those kind words. Yes, I actually asked God, what can I do? In the middle of the pandemic, I wanted to do something. I called, and David and I were just talking actually. And at first, he said, well, I can tell you about some, when we have extra meals. And I was like, okay, cool. So I would get a call every now and then, and I would immediately jump in my car, go over the push, connected with a domestic violence shelter over on the South Side. And then I got on the list. And so God took a pebble and made a beach. And so every day for probably July, August, September, October, for 4 months straight, every day I would leave my house, go and fill my car up with food and deliver it to 2 shelters here in Bronzeville and over on the South Side. And honestly, it filled my heart. Honestly, it made me not have time to be depressed that my business basically came to a screeching halt. Honestly, it helped me every single day to stay encouraged, to know that, Twyler, even though you're not doing the work that you used to do, there's still work that you can do. And so it just made me happy that I could be a part of what Rainbow Push was doing and always has done. And that is feed our community spiritually, mentally, emotionally, financially. Push has been there. I've seen Reverend Jackson be there. I have seen you be there for families in need. I love the diaper drive. That was just amazing. And I literally called the domestic violence shelter and said, hey, do you guys need diapers? And I think at the time they had 3 women in the program who were pregnant. And so she was like, Twyler, you have no idea, because a lot of times people aren't dropping off diapers, right? When you clean it out your house, a stack of diapers is probably no. And so it was very timely. And so when I talked to you guys and you said, hey, we did a diaper drive, can you come and deliver some of these diapers? Absolutely. Got on the phone, did what I had to do. And so I will always be here. You guys have helped Strategic Event Solutions to make it many, many years. So what I can give back to the organization, I'll always be here to do it. So that's what this program is. Yes, you can come back when you have more than 30 seconds to just click on a link and talk about whatever we're going to talk about. But and then my sister said, let me just show what my sister said. She said, I ran to get my grandson and niece to listen to the wisdom of Reverend Wilson. Thank you for this, Twyler Jenkins and Reverend Wilson. Yes, Reverend Wilson is full of knowledge. I love to listen to Reverend Jackson. I love listening to Mrs. Jackson. I love listening to you. It's so important that we share these stories, because our kids need them. They really, really do. They really do.
It's interesting. I do have to go. I tell young people, I was born in a house because for my mother to deliver me in the hospital, she would have had to go to the basement of the hospital. And because I was born in the segregated South in Tennessee on a farm in my great aunt's 4-poster bed. And so I have witnessed real racism, direct racism. I lived with segregation. I had to ride. I rode in the train, the city of New Orleans going south. And when you cross the Mason-Dixie line, this arbitrary line, I could not sit in the dining car. I could not go to the club car. I had to stay in the colored car and
Wow.
eat out of my lunch out of a shoebox that mother had prepared, which just angered me because I wanted to ride in the dining car like the white
Here.
children. And I was just
Mhm.
a child. And so we got off the train and we entered a segregated train station. Half of it was for the white people, another half for us. I saw colored water. I went to a movie theater and had to go up in the balcony with a black curtain separating me from the white children. This is crazy. I could smell the popcorn downstairs, but I could not go downstairs to buy popcorn, even though I had money. And I'm living now in the north, and when I go down south, it was like going back in time. And so
Yeah.
when you tell your story, they understand I don't play about equality and equity. It's important to me because I know what it looks like when you
Mhm.
are separate and unequal and
Yeah.
people deny human dignity.
Mhm.
You got old people that get on a bus and they have to surrender their seats to
Yeah.
a white child.
Mhm.
This is crazy. So when you have been born in segregation, born and shaped by systemic racism, it makes you feel some kind of way.
It does make you feel some kind of way. It also gives you the wind beneath your wings that you have, Rebel Wilson, to fight the fight, to stay on the front lines, because you have an acumen that you don't have to still be where you are. You could be doing many, many other things with your education, with your degree, with being a lawyer, but you still continue because of that. And so thank you for your service. Thank you for continuing to fight for our rights. Thank you for continuing to work with Reverend Jackson and doing what needs to be done, especially voting, because we know that, and they know that that is a power that they want to take from us, but it is a power that we have fought for, we have bled for. It is a power that we deserve, and it is a power that we will continue to fight for. And so anything that I can do this summer, come and talk to the kids, spend a day with the kids, help you to brainstorm on what to do with the kids. My intern, I wish I was over at Push. My intern is a young 17-year-old high school student from Homewood Flossmoor High School. And I interviewed her last week on my show, and she is amazing. And when she called me and wanted to just talk to me about event planning. And I said, wow, let me give this young lady an opportunity, because that's not what we see on the media. And
Right.
from her calling me, I hired her, and I probably wrote her one of the biggest checks she's ever had in her life today on her payday. But I want her to know, and I'm not even just, I could pay her beneath what I'm paying her, but I want her to know her value at 17. Let me tell you that what you're bringing to me is valuable. So what you're going to be bringing to somebody at 27, don't you ever look back. Don't you ever think that because of the color of your skin or your gender, that you should be paid less than. So I'm trying to teach her now at 17 what her value is, so that by the time that she's 21, 27, really working for a company and in an industry, that she can understand that. And so she's been amazing. But that's what we have to do with our kids. That's absolutely what we have to do. I take her and I give her real life experience. I took her to Erie Crown Theater today. She met Brenda Battle. She met everybody who was there, and she was so impressed. But that's what we have to do to our young people to make sure that they have a future. Like you said, they got to have a vision. And that young lady has a vision, and I just wanted to pour into her.
Well, that's wonderful, and that's what we have to do, and that's what I think more women. We can't keep promoting ourselves, not lifting other young women up, and I think that's positive. And young men, we have to be the platform for them. Everybody that is successful had a mentor. It just doesn't happen accidentally. It is an intentional investment, and you have mentors at different stages of your development.
Yes, ma'am.
Have somebody that says, I'm going to drag you along with me.
Yes, ma'am.
We do too little of that, and so that was one of the things I do want to talk to you about, because we got to be we have to build these pathways. If you're training a runner, I'm getting ready to do a program, pass the baton. You don't pass the baton to strangers. You have to be in the race with me. You have to be on the same team with me. You have to know the handoff. You have to run faster than I'm running to catch me and pass me. Because the
Yes,
hand is not to somebody sitting waiting to get it. You are in the race. And that's what we have to tell people. You're not gonna, they keep saying, well, when you gonna move over? Not moving until I see you. I got to know you're there.
that's
We
right.
have to practice together so you don't drop the baton. Because if you do,
That's
we
right.
lose the race. And
That's
so
right.
I think that we that this is not some, just because you're smart doesn't mean you can be the best runner.
That's right. That's right. That's right. You got to have that skill set. So, Bonnie, yes, ma'am, I would love for you to have your mother-in-law, Josie Childs. Josie Childs, yes, on soon. And she said, Reverend Wilson, see you tomorrow as we remember Attorney Ellis. And so that's Bonnie Collins shouting out to you, Reverend Wilson. So I would absolutely love to have your mother-in-law. I didn't know your mother-in-law was Josie Childs. I would absolutely love to have Josie Childs on and to talk to her. We have so much to talk about. Our culture, our heritage, where we have been, where we are, where we're going. I could do interviews like this every single Friday. It's all about health and wellness, but this is a part of our health and wellness because who we are, like you said, the first thing is knowing whose we are. And that spiritual wellness is so important. And, I actually had, when I was in Africa, there was a man that I met, and he said, he's not necessarily a Christian. He said, but what I know for sure is, he said, without God, he said, them slaves would not have survived without them songs and without their spiritual belief system. He says, so I can't take that away from African Americans because that is what got us to where we are today. And so he's absolutely right. That is what got us through and will continue to get us through. It is our spiritual foundation. I thank God for you, Reverend Wilson. I thank God you were available. I thank God that you said, yes, I got to come and see you. I hear you done changed churches. Are you back in service now?
No, we're not in person, but we need to talk about that too. I do need your help and need your prayers. So maybe we can talk Monday or Tuesday.
Absolutely, always in my prayers. Reverend Wilson, Reverend Jackson is always in my prayers. The entire family. This is something that I ordered you all. Y'all saw my backyard on Facebook. So this is my garden flag. So I'm hanging this up. I just got it today. So I'm hanging this up out in my garden. It talks about and celebrates Juneteenth, and it is our Independence Day in 1865. So it says, celebrate freedom, Juneteenth, my Independence Day, 1865. So go and celebrate you all tomorrow, but not just celebrate. It's not about eating a piece of chicken or, it's not about eating some ribs or cooking out and just, having a time celebrating, drinking, or whatever people are going to do. It truly is about carrying on our culture, our heritage, our freedom. It's about doing the work. And if you don't know what to do, Reverend Wilson just gave you at least 10 different things that you can do. Find out who your senator is. Call your senator. Try and get this policy is so important. So we got a Voting Rights Act that we need to pass, standing on the shoulder of so many. Let me tell you, one of the best trips I ever had was with Reverend Jackson and Mrs. Jackson when we went to the Civil Rights Museum. I bought so many books, Reverend Wilson, it don't even make sense. I tell you, I know how I'm going to have time to read all of these. Yeah. So Walking with the Wind by John Lewis, a memoir of the movement. Any kids on this line, let me tell you all, you want to do something, you want to learn something, you want to know something, pick up a book. Biased by Jennifer Eberhardt. Uncovering the hidden prejudice that shapes what we see, think, and do. Pick that book up. Just Mercy. You can never go wrong with Brian Stevenson.
That's right.
I mean, this man, he is doing some work. And without the Brian Stevensons of the world, we would not know the work that we need to do about lynching. I love Brian Stevenson, and I pray for him daily because he definitely is uncovering and exposing what we need to know about lynching and what's happened in this country. Come on now. I Am Not Your Negro, James Baldwin. If you haven't read this book, you have not read about our history. If you haven't read anything by James Baldwin, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing.
Twyla,
Yes. I have to go. So pick up a book, do the work. I have to go. Thank you, Reverend Wilson. I love you. I'll see you one day next week. All right. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. A little trip down memory lane with Reverend Jeanette Wilson. She is the National Education Director at Rainbow Push over for Push Excel. She has a youth program. So if you have kids and you need something for your kids to do this summer, certainly reach out to Reverend Wilson over at Rainbow Push. You can go to rainbowpush.org and she will definitely tell you about their program for youth. It's a STEAM and sports program. It's a wonderful program. They even do a HBCU tour. So like I said, pick up a book, learn something about Juneteenth, learn something about our history and our culture. Bonnie, I will be connecting with you to definitely have your mother-in-law on. I would love that. All right, you guys know we pray every Monday. Have to remind you, join the prayer line, 605-313-5104. The access code 345235#, 605-313-5104. Come on, join some morning manna. You will be so encouraged. It helps you get through your week. You can not only just join us on Monday, but you can join us every day, 5:30 for meditation, 6 o'clock for prayer. It encourages you. It lifts you up. This week's meditation was on expectation, and it was amazing. And we had so many praise reports this morning. It was off the chain and charts. So join us Monday morning with me and Dr. Lockett and all those in the I Am That Woman movement for prayer and for meditation, 5:30 a.m. Central Time, 6 a.m. for prayer. Always join Tyree for her daily Bible study Monday through Friday at 7:30 Central Time, 8:30 on her Facebook Live, 8:30 Eastern Time. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Man, it was absolutely off the charts. Juneteenth, celebrate tomorrow, but not just by cooking out, having some friends over. Learn about it. Educate your kids about it. Know about it. Pick up a book. Read about it, but also do something about our freedom. Do not sit still and do not sit down on what our ancestors lived and died for us to do. And that part of that is our voting rights, which is what Reverend Wilson talked about today. Call your state senator, let them know we need to pass this national voting rights bill. If it wasn't for them, there would be no us. If it wasn't for us, there might not be a them. So come on. We need to do the work. All right. Love you all. Have a very blessed weekend and happy Juneteenth. Somebody go find my mama. Where my mama at, y'all? She wandered in Indiana. She just didn't want to do the interview today, I guess. I don't know. Y'all pray for my mama. Pray for my mama, please. All right. Love y'all. Have a